Well, meanwhile, an Israeli airstrike has killed at least 20 people at a school in central Gaza on Sunday night. The school in question had been sheltering people already displaced by the war there. And more explosions reported in the early hours of this Monday, notably outside a hospital in Deir al-Balah. That latest strike hitting tents that, as you can see, went quickly up in flames. Meanwhile, getting some vital fuel, blood and essential medicine into hospitals in Gaza, the World Health Organization says it has now managed to get some supplies in. A one-off mission, however, far from meeting the necessary requirements, with the few remaining hospitals in Gaza totally overwhelmed as bombs continue to fall. Well, to get the latest picture on the situation there, we can speak to West Bank policy lead for Oxfam, Bushra Khalidi. Thanks so much for your time. We're hearing once again more strikes overnight, people in northern Gaza being told to move south. But, can you give us the latest you're hearing on the situation there for people in Gaza?
Hi, and thank you for having me. In the last 24 hours, what we've heard is people have burnt alive in displaced tents in Al-Aqsa Hospital in the northern part of Gaza. We are hearing that Jabalia, Beit Hanun areas in the north of the northern governorates is being completely leveled. People are besieged. People are sending us goodbye messages. People are tweeting their goodbyes on to the world to see, saying you might not hear from us again because we're besieged and we can't move and we can't leave our homes. And we have nothing left in, no water, no food left. We've not been able to enter any aid to the north as Oxfam for the last month. And there has been no aid entering at all the north since the 1st of October. Water is not running in the north because there's no more fuel, and Israel has denied fuel allocations to the northern parts of the northern governorates. We've heard yesterday of kids being completely massacred in Shate refugee camp. And we saw, rows of children, killed as young as 1 year old. And yesterday as well, and this morning in Nusayrat and Deir al-Balah as well, schools were targeted and hit. It's just absolute horror. People are burning to crisp and the world is silent. It's unbelievable. We could not believe. Every day I wake up not believing that it could get worse. And yet today, I think I've seen some of the worst images I've seen in the last 12 months in Gaza.
Indeed, we're seeing it, and yet it's still hard to imagine the reality on the ground for these people. As you were saying, we're over a year into this offensive now. Oxfam being blocked then, getting simple food and essential supplies even in, blocked by Israel on the border?
So there's almost 500,000 people still in the north. We're unable to get to the north whatsoever, whether through the northern crossings, for a month for Oxfam and for all humanitarian aid organizations into the northern parts of the northern governorates since the 1st of October, including WFP. People are literally going to either die of starvation or die from an Israeli bomb. That is where we're at with the Beit Hanun and Jabalia and Beit Lahia areas in the north. Our colleagues that are in Gaza City can literally see the north parts smoke bellowing out of the destroyed buildings, and can have been the entire northern part of Gaza has been shaking from the amount of bombs that have been dropped in the last week on the northern parts.
And Israel is saying that it's going back into the north because Hamas has regrouped and is reoperating in the north. It's telling people to move south. Is there a safe place in Gaza?
There's absolutely no safe place in Gaza. And this is why 500,000 people are not leaving. Because where are they going to go to? Our colleagues refuse to leave. Because to where? To go where? To stay on top of rubbles in pollution, in sewage in the south, where there's barely enough food, or you're surviving on canned food and with no sanitation system, no civilian infrastructure, no real dignified life. Why would they leave their homes at this point a year later, where Israel has evacuated, forcibly displaced over the entire population of Gaza? Why would people believe Israeli authorities at this stage? It's clear that its strategy is not working. It's been 12 months that they've been saying exactly the same thing. And people are trapped in a place. This is the problem in Gaza. And this is why it's so peculiar and unique to any other conflict, is that people have nowhere to go. They are trapped in an enclave because Israel controls all of the borders and will not let people go and flee for their safety, because there is no safety, because they are bombing the entire strip at all times.
Indeed, even the so-called humanitarian safe zones have also been hit, of course, by Israeli strikes. Now, Oxfam, as a safe zone.
Humanitarian safe zones need to be, first of all, agreed by the warring parties. This is not the case. We don't accept that this is a humanitarian safe zone. This is designated a humanitarian safe zone by Israeli authorities. It is not a humanitarian safe zone. That does not look like a humanitarian safe zone where you don't have any civilian infrastructure, you don't have water, you don't have electricity, you're unable to reach the affected communities. We can barely operate. It's not a humanitarian safe zone. It's a wasteland where people are just piling up and crammed into the smallest strip of land with absolutely no infrastructure, living in sand, and potentially being bombed, because safe zones have been bombed for the entire last 12 months. So there's no such thing as safe zones in Gaza.
And tell me, you are Oxfam, it's an international organisation. Are you getting any international support? What do you make of this international reaction?
The international community is complicit, because they are not taking actions. This ICJ advisory opinion that came out in July is very clear, actually. It sets out very, very specific measures that third states should be taking to prevent further atrocities happening in Gaza and to prevent the illegality, the occupation to endure on Palestinian people. And we have not seen meaningful action from any third states and Israel's allies. And on the contrary, it seems like, they've been supporting this and green-lighting this and not really putting any red lines on anything in Gaza. And in fact, they risk to be complicit in Israel's atrocity crimes that they're carrying out in Gaza. That is what the international community has done. We've seen a few allies, but really those that have influence have not met their obligations under international law to hold Israel accountable in any meaningful way.
Do you see any of that changing?
As long as you let Israel's impunity foster and fester, and we warned of the regional escalation. We've been saying it from the beginning that if this continues, it will spill over beyond Gaza's borders, and now it has. And we've said if you don't enforce a ceasefire and you don't, enforce it, and there are ways to enforce a ceasefire, and third states know what tools are available to them, then it will spill over, and this is what we've seen. So as long as we don't end Israel's impunity and we don't hold perpetrators of atrocity crimes accountable, this will continue.
Bushra Khalidi, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks so much for your time and giving us a picture, a feeling of that horrific situation inside Gaza this Monday. Bushra Khalidi there, West Bank Policy Lead for Oxfam International.